Welcome to Black Spring. This segment of our show is brought to you by our good friends at the John Birch Society. Less government, more responsibility, and with God's help, a better world. The JBS is a constitutional and educational organization that's been around for over 60 years, dedicated to upholding and defending the Constitution and working to preserve our freedoms and liberties in this country. And once again, I'd like to thank everybody for joining me on this segment of Black Spring with Autumn. Now, I have an article here for you from our vetted source of the New American, the TNA, that is. Now, according to this article written by Luis Miguel, the Gates-funded program is to begin tests on biometric ID vaccination records in Africa. Now, it looks like the synergy of vaccination and ID has finally hit the streets. And apparently, MasterCard Wellness Pass will premiere in the low-income communities of West Africa this week, courtesy of Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Now, according to a profile by MasterCard, the trust stamp uses biometrics to verify your identity without revealing any information. According to this, the process is simple. The customer takes a photo of their face, palm, or fingerprint and shares it with Trust Stamp. The company uses AI to create a 3D mask of it and then throws away the data and adds encryptions in place of the name or records. Quote, only a small percentage of the data that originally existed in the hash, end quote. This is from the Trust Stamp co-founder, Gareth Jenner says, quote, what you have is something safer for storing because it can't be used to directly identify you. No one would recognize you in this huge jumble of numbers. Now, also, the new program to be tested in West Africa will see Trust Stamp's technology integrated into the Gavi MasterCard, quote, wellness pass, end quote, a digital vaccination record and identity system. Now, the Gavi, the Global Alliance of Vaccines and Immunization, is funded by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, the Rockefeller Foundation, and other elite foundations. MasterCard has stated its commitment to a, quote, world beyond cash, end quote, and created a suite of services known as, quote, digital wellness, end quote, to facilitate digital transactions. Now, by integrating this Trust Stamp or Wellness Pass, they will be able to track vaccines biometrically, even in areas lacking cellular data or internet connectivity. Okay, so here you also have an explanation from the Trust Stamp co-founder, Gareth Jenner, who explains how it works. He says that the hash has to work where there's no internet and no cellular connectivity, he says. It helps create a simple, low-budget way for children and their guardians to maintain medical records that cannot be confused with another child. Each time the child gets a vaccine and a new hash is created at the clinic, it is encoded with the updated health information. So this includes algorithms that can accurately predict two different hashes that belong to the same living person. Quote, the hash evolves over time, Jenner says. Quote, just as you evolve, end quote. Okay, so according to this, Jenner says his work would be beneficial in the time of the COVID-19 because the technology allows for digital identification in public without having a show of full face, as in the case with people wearing face masks. And MasterCard notes that Trust Stamp is also exploring new ways to commercialize the hash, end quote, and that it is working on ways to allow companies to, quote, identify criminals prior to appointments, end quote. Okay, so a bit of a novel idea here, don't you think? Once again, I'd like to thank everybody for joining me on this segment of Black Spring with Autumn. So, Apparently, it's a bit of a novel idea, right? All in the name of humanity or human rights, which you might find even more well defined under the UN Agenda 2030. You'll find more on those rights and those goals that are outlined. But are we setting the stage for a new class or class of criminalizing those who refuse to become vaccinated? I mean, clearly, this is a violation of the Fourth Amendment, powered by the elite and their vision of the populace or the world. Whose rules are we playing by? Is this about safety or sustainability? Whose sustainability would this be? Or is there a fuller scale of synergy on the horizon, perhaps even with 5G? And once again, I'd like to thank everybody for joining me on this segment of Black Spring with Autumn.